Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace, this is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And today we are doing topics chosen by our patrons.
Indeed we are. I am pretty excited and very thankful for our patrons. One, because you give us money, and we appreciate that. And two, because you give us inspiration on what we should do. Sometimes it's specific topics, and sometimes it's like it is for this episode, where it's genres specifically that we're supposed to find a topic in, which is pretty awesome. So thank you so much to you folks. Before we get started, just a reminder, if anyone has a story they would like to share with us, we call those homegrown horrors. And Robin, what is a homegrown horror?
So homegrown horrors are the tales of paranormal, supernatural, spiritual things that you folks have experienced. It could be true crime, stuff like that. And it's you, your friends, your family, and they share it with you, you share it with us, and we get to share it with the rest of the spooky friends. So it's pretty cool.
Indeed. So if you have a story like that, please email storytime@scaryish.com. Or you could also go to our website, scaryish.com, and click on Contact Us. Fill out that form. It comes directly to us. Or hit us up on any of our social medias. We appreciate every which way you reach out to us, and we always want to share what you would like shared. So we look forward to getting those. Hopefully you folks don't have too much stuff regarding what we're going to cover today, because I can tell you that mine wound up having a lot more detail in it that I did not want to see, that I did not expect, but we're going to get there. So Robin, what are you going to be covering?
I'm going to be covering the disappearance of Lauren Spierer.
Okay. I'm going to be covering a possession, and it's the possession of Michael Taylor. And I think I'm actually going to be going first this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Cool. You go, girl. You do you.
All right. So, like we mentioned this week, we let the patrons decide our topics. We tossed out several genre suggestions for you all to choose from. Those were Haunted Hollywood, Cryptids, Haunted Location, True Crime, and Possession. And the results were listed 5-1. It's what I just said, actually, which means True Crime and Possession were the top two. No votes for Haunted Hollywood, which just was like a dagger to my heart. That's fine, patrons.
I don't think there's any left.
There are plenty left. So, I mean, Rosemary's Baby I still haven't covered, and there's some other ones as well, but that's okay. I get it. We'll take a break on those for a little while. The top two, like I mentioned, True Crime and Possession, and Robin and I actually argued quite a bit about who would get to do what, because I think it's really assumed that I'm going to cover Possession and Robin's going to cover True Crime, and I kind of wanted to cover True Crime this time, but Robin was kind of a dick about it and told me that if I tried to cover True Crime, she would fucking end me. So
whatever. You said that if I researched a true crime, you're like, I'm going to throw your shit out. And I did it anyway. Fuck you.
So like I was saying, I decided to do a possession, which kind of touches on true crime. And by kind of, I mean it totally does, so suck it, Robin. So this wonderful story takes place in a far-away mystical country known as England. Ossett, O-S-S-E-T-T, probably not saying that correctly, West Yorkshire to be precise. And it starts off with a husband and a wife. The husband is one Michael Taylor. Spoilers, you already know the name of the topic, so you know it's not going to go well for him. And Michael Taylor was a little down on his luck. He was a butcher at a local shop, but was struggling with unemployment due to the current economy. And I say current economy, you're probably thinking, which current economy? Well, the one that existed back in 1974. Y'all remember 1974, right?
Well, I mean, I just watched a season of American Horror Story.
That was 1984, so it's just 10 years before that. But during 1974, a gallon of gas was 42 cents. A dozen eggs was 45 cents. The average house cost $34,900.
I mean, now you can get a dozen eggs for like $1.50. So
can you get an average house for $34,900 though?
You get a shithole for $34,000. But I mean, it's not that for eggs. I'm saying just eggs.
Yeah.
Eggs did not blow up
that much. Average income for the United States household was $13,900. And aside from that, nothing really big happened in 1974. Just to hit
Vietnam War?
Hit some of the high notes. Richard Nixon became the only U.S. president to resign ever. The IRA started bombing all over Britain, including the Tower of London and the House of Parliament. In less distressing news, the Rumble in the Jungle took place. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's George Foreman versus Muhammad Ali, one of the most famous boxing matches of all time. And a 26-year-old writer published his first novel, and that novel was named Carrie. So that was the first novel that Stephen King got published, and he was 26 years old back in 1974.
Wait, so when was the Vietnam War then? Wasn't that in the 70s?
Late 60s, early 70s. So,
okay.
Yeah. So worldwide recession was going on. Things were pretty rough. There was a gas shortage going on. Actually, the gas shortage led to the 55 mile per hour speed limit across the United States in an effort to conserve gas because people won't burn it as much if they're not traveling at a higher speed.
I think back in the day, engines, it was like if you go over 60 miles per hour, it burns like exponentially more gas.
Yeah. Internal combustion engines, they were trying to rev down the horsepower. It's kind of funny because my dad is a Corvette enthusiast, and he always talked about how he did not want to get a Corvette from certain years in the 70s because it was during the gas shortage. They were trying to make it more like fuel economic and not as basically, badass. And of course, he wound up the first vet he ever bought was a 1977 Corvette Stingray. So I was like, wow, way to not follow through on your convictions there, dickhead.
It's funny.
But yeah, so 1974 was definitely a crazy time. And I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of stuff was going on. Smallpox outbreak in India. So it was batshit crazy. Something to remember if you're worried that 2020 is unique in its shittiness because we've had really bad years before. We will get through 2020 the same way we got through 1974. Anyways, Michael Taylor was having a bad time, but those that know him would describe him as kind-hearted and steady. His wife, Christine Taylor, was also regarded by friends and family as loving and cheerful, and they were, for all intents and purposes, a happy family. And I do mean family, because Michael was 30 years old in 1974. He was born in 1944. And already fathered to 5 children with Christine.
Jesus, that's a lot of babies.
I literally put that is a lot of fucking.
Oh my god, that's not... I mean, you could do it just 5 times.
That's true, but still, I mean, that means he went 5 for 5, which is pretty good. In addition to having 5 kids, they also had a dog, so a household of 8. It was a poodle whose name I could not locate, but I found the breed, so I was like, I'm including that, fudge it. Now, nobody is perfect, and if there is anything that is posing a challenge to this family in 1974, it's some struggles carrying over from an injury Michael had sustained in his early 20s. As a side note, it may have been an earlier or later part of his life. I found a lot of stories about this, and for all the stories that I could find, the time frame seems to be all over the place. Most of them just state in his 20s. The only thing that is certain, from what I can tell, is that Michael suffered a serious back injury that left him with chronic pain. Now, anyone with chronic pain knows that it can be difficult to simply live with, let alone hold down a job. And if you combine that with a global recession and high unemployment, times were really tough. Times were really tough for the Taylor family and a lot of families around back then. Chronic pain and unemployment were 2 factors to Michael's struggle with depression. It wasn't a consistent thing, and it wasn't a huge cloud hanging over him, but it is stated that he did battle depression, and it definitely wasn't helped out by the circumstances of his life. And I think at this point we can all sort of relate to that. Sometimes things suck, and life can get hard to deal with, and depression is just something that rears its ugly head, whether you want it to or not, that you're going to have to confront. And despite that, Michael was still regarded as a kind and as a happy person. He was legitimately thought of as a happy and a good person. One of the things multiple neighbors stated is that the only noise they had ever heard coming from the Taylors' home the entire time they lived there was that of laughter or children playing loudly.
Not their dog barking?
No, so just happy sounds coming from their home. So it sounds like a house filled with love. The Taylor family began to change up their routine to combat the challenges that was facing them in 1974. A woman named Barbara Wardman had asked Michael and Christine if they would be interested in attending a church group with her in hopes that religion could buoy their spirits. And after some debate, Michael and Christine said, fuck it, let's give it a shot. Up to that point, Michael and Christine had not been very religious, but they weren't really rejecting religion outright either, so they decided to go. And now, there is something I heard a very long time ago, and by that I mean probably 10 to 15 years at this point, probably more like 10, I'm not that old, but something I heard a long time ago from a very, very brilliant woman that was one of my professors at Purdue. She stated that the brighter your candle burns, the longer a shadow it casts.
Well, Fall Out Boy and Steve Aoki taught me that the brightest things fade the fastest.
They're 2 completely different messages, and I hate you so much. It was during my Great Studies courses and my Religions of the East courses that she mentioned this to the students because she wanted us to sincerely understand that there's like a natural balance to these things, and like strengthening yourself with faith is this wonderful thing for people to do, but they need to steel themselves at the same time, because as you start exposing yourself to more of these things, you start to develop more of an understanding and give yourself more of an awareness to sort of like the darkness that's out there. You know what I mean? It's like ignorance is bliss. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is like, that's fine if you don't want to be ignorant, if you want to educate yourself or enlighten yourself in this case. It's a wonderful thing, but just be aware that the night is dark and full of terrors, essentially.
All right.
So I always thought it was this really cryptic thing, and she always made sure to mention it to people, because I think people in their 20s or their late teens even that are in college are really susceptible to wanting to expand their knowledge and not understanding that it could be dangerous regardless of what you're trying to expand your knowledge on. And those are some really, really heavy topics. But it was always really fucking creepy that she would say that, and I couldn't help but think of that at this point in the story. Because Michael and Christine Taylor, who had not really been exposed to too much religion, decided that they were going to join a group known as the Christian Fellowship Group. All of that sounds generic enough that it could really apply anywhere if you think of it. Like, Michael and Christine Taylor are fairly common names. Christian Fellowship Group is a pretty basic name for a group.
It sounds like there's a lot of groups out there that have, like, Christian Fellowship, da-da-da-da-da.
Exactly. So it's something that, like I said, this took place in England, but I sincerely think that pretty much anyone could picture this happening in their neighborhood up to this point. So this group had a leader, as most groups do, and that was a 21-year-old woman named Marie Robinson. And I put cuckoo, Mrs. Robinson.
Oh my gosh.
But she was 21, and she was in charge of this particular Christian Fellowship Group.
Okay.
Now, this is a religious organization, and they're not necessarily attending mass or like part of a congregation yet, but this group is just like, imagine the first episode of Letterkenny.
Okay.
It's like he's not going to church, he was just going to like the youth group or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the minister or whatever shows up and like does some preaching and stuff like that.
But it's just like a kind of like a little get together.
Exactly.
So, okay.
But in this case, Marie is the person who's in charge of it. And she wasn't actually a Mrs. Robinson, she was just a Ms. or whatever you call someone, Miss Robinson. And I think when people who aren't religious hear that folks are going to start participating in activities with the religious group, folks do have a tendency to overreact or be dicks about it. Stuff like, are you joining a cult? Or just busting their balls in general about getting like really, really religious. And one of the things that this group had in common with a cult is that they had a leader that was, one, attractive, and two, charismatic. And folks say that Marie was pretty. And which is like my word of the day.
Earlier tonight, he was like, I'm going to put that in my script.
It's because like, I said it like 5 times, and it worked every single time, and I think it still works. And if you're following along, I'm just going to go ahead and say for the rest of my script, just drink every time I say pretty. So have fun with that. Like, a lot of us are in quarantine, so what else are you going to do? Sometimes drinking games are a fun way to pass the time. As a side note, I'll tell you a super quick story about a drinking game gone wrong. My friend Lee and I once decided that we were going to do a drinking game to a television show. That show is known as South Park, and the episode is the episode where they are allowed to say shit. And we didn't know how many times they were going to be able to say it, but they had a counter in the bottom right, so we're like, oh my god, like, let's get the booze, let's do shots. And we decided that we were going to take a shot for every 10 shits that were said in that episode, and by the time the 40th shit was said, we decided that we should do a shot at 50 to honor the every 10 up until 50, and then only do a shot every 25 after that. And I don't know how many of you have watched that episode of South Park, but they say it 162 times
what?
in half an hour. We took 8 shots in a half an hour. If we would have done it the way we said we were going to do it, we'd have taken 16 shots in a half an hour. We were fucking hammered in every sense of the word. And when you're hammered like that, you kind of just keep going for the rest of the night. So it wound up just being me and Lee just absolutely blitzed. And I'll try and not do that to you folks, but just keep track of how many times I say the keyword pretty. So Michael and Christine are at their first meeting, and they're very impressed with Marie Robinson's presence. She leads the group, she plans activities, she probably literally pours Kool-Aid for people.
Wow.
I just imagine she's this person who really wants people to be part of the group, and she's really enthusiastic, and she makes sure everyone knows that she's in charge. I don't know why that's how I picture her that way, but it is. And they continue to attend meetings, and things are going pretty well. Although Christine was a little worried about Michael's enthusiasm for showing up to these meetings. Like, if Christine wasn't up for attending, she wasn't sick, or she just didn't want to go, Michael still attended, regardless of whether or not she was going. Additional meetings started to take place that were unofficial, sometimes with less the size of the normal group, and Michael began to grow distant at home. He'd make up excuses to leave. He was always leading back to Marie Robinson. And they began to have meetings, just the two of them, which is pretty fucked up
so
if you're a married man with 5 kids. His back is clearly feeling better at this point because he's just out and about and doing all this stuff. Now, the things that Robinson did in some of these more private meetings don't seem exactly normal. Like when she'd read passages from the Bible, she would shake, sometimes violently. And she claimed it was the Holy Spirit entering her body. And I'm just going to say, I don't go to church. I've seen videos of like the Holy Spirit where people do like the shaking thing and falling down. So I'm not going to judge anyone. And I think at that point, if you're fairly new to religion, you go and you see someone shaking while they're reading scripture, you might think, that's fucking weird. But you might not judge it. You might want to stick around and there might be a decent vibe there. So you might not just outright dismiss it and say, let's go back to having board game nights.
But I would just be like, no, I don't. You can keep that spirit outside my body.
Yeah. So
maybe float around me. That's cool.
It's definitely weird. So it said that one of the things she claimed to be able to do because she had the spirit in her is heal people. So now it's starting to sound like televangelist style evangelical stuff, you know? And have I mentioned at this point that this could all be bullshit? Because this could all be bullshit. But it is said that Marie offered to heal Michael, and who knows, maybe it worked. Michael moved from an infatuation with her to something a lot less healthy. They were meeting together and performing ceremonies with one another. The internet has plenty of speculation on what took place, and claims include a lot of bizarre stuff. One of them, when they were just the two of them, was making the sign of the cross at each other. I just did that. You guys can't hear my hands. If you know what it looks like, it's just north, south, east, west, or west, east. I forget
Father,
which.
Son, and the Holy Spirit. Get it right.
That's 3. So what's the 4th point on that cross?
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Oh, okay. 4 words. So west, east. I'm trying to give them directions so they know how to do it if they want to do it.
Have you ever been to church where you've had to do that?
No. Well, I mean, I have, but I've never been guided on directions. I know it goes north, south. I don't know if it goes west, east. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to go to my left shoulder or my right shoulder first.
Oh, okay. I went to Catholic school. That's all.
And you're still not telling us what we need to do.
Oh,
so
it's just like...
the secrets these people
left
keep.
Shoulder, right shoulder. It's like...
north,
south.
Up, down, left, right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've ever wanted to know. The show is now over. Scaryish has concluded. I've dug into the secrets of the Catholic Church, and now I know. So they would make the sign of the cross at each other repeatedly. They would repeat certain passages of the Bible over and over and over, and it said pretty consistently on the internet that these repeated actions would cause them to speak in tongues.
No way!
They'd bring other folks into their private sessions to quote-unquote exorcise them of their sins. A few places also claimed that they believed the power of the full moon was evil, and they would have their private meetings during this time to, like, shelter themselves from the evilness of the full moon.
What?
And, did I mention when it was just their private 2-person rituals, they would take place nude because they would be naked? So,
no.
Probably not surprising. Again, there's speculation on the internet. Maybe that's just a detail where it happened one time and who knows. But it's way more holy when you make the sign of the cross without your hands, if you know what I'm saying. And yes, that is a dingle-donger joke. Enjoy that image, folks. It's pretty messed up shit. Side note, that's the 4th pretty since the game started. Hope you're not taking shots. So it didn't take long before Christine had to sit down with Michael and ask, "Yo, dog, what the fuck is going on between you and Marie?" And Michael did not give her a straight answer. He most likely either didn't respond or changed the subject, or just ran out of the house and ran to Marie because this dude was in deep.
I just think that to me it seems like he's cheating on his wife, you know? And he's obsessed with this...
young 21-year-old.
Yeah. She's obviously some type of cult leader. I mean, come on.
She has the charisma to apparently have been a cult leader, and things are just really, really weird here. So the congregation of the church were all talking about this as well. It's not like people were... Like, this wasn't going unnoticed, you know? And it was a bad situation for all involved. Christine was finally fed up with Michael's shit. Like, Skanky Pussy may have healed his back, but she was going to have his ass. So they went to a gathering of the group's members, and Christine had a plan. And another side note, this part is told differently, but here are the details that are persistent throughout. So Christine and the preacher for this congregation confronted Michael and Marie about their carryings on, about the fact that these things seemed weird and they weren't right. And during this time, Christine laid it all out. And some reports say it happened with just the four of them, Christine, Michael, Marie, and the preacher. And other reports state that it happened with a larger gathering of this group with more folks there. Either way, Christine piped up and loudly accused the two of them of having an affair. Like, point blank, like, you two are fucking. This isn't right. This needs to stop.
Do you think she used the phrase, you two are fucking?
Probably. I would in front of a preacher. Not really, not at all. So, but she was pissed. And she has every right to be pissed, you know? The accusations and examples of behavior and all the things that have been happening started coming out. And then the shit hit the fan. And this is when things really take a turn for the absolute bizarre. So I'm not sure if it was the stress or the embarrassment or the guilt, but Michael snapped. Michael claims to have felt an influence of evil that had been growing in him finally take control of him, and when it did, during this confrontation, he became violent. He began to viciously attack Marie Robinson, just raining down blows on her in front of everyone. So whether it's this giant crowd or just the preacher, his wife, Michael, and Marie, out of nowhere, he just starts beating the shit out of this woman that he had been obsessed with to this point. And people had to be called in, and Michael was restrained. And those who had to hold him back stated, while he was attacking her, and while they were restraining him, he was shouting and screaming in tongues. There is a book called Demonic Possession, Extraordinary True Life Experiences that I was able to find that has a really good account of what happened here. I highly suggest checking this book out if you have a chance. I know, like I said, some of us are on quarantine looking for new things to read. It is written very well, and it has a lot of stuff in there. So I'm going to paraphrase a few of the quotes that were gathered for this book. Marie Robinson's description of the events is as follows, quote, I suddenly glanced at Mike, and his whole features changed. He looked almost bestial. He kept looking at me, and there was a really wild look in his eyes. I started screaming at him out of fear. I started speaking in tongues. Mike also screamed at me in tongues. I was on the verge of death, and I seemed to come to my senses. I knew that only the name of Jesus would save me, and I just started saying over and over again, Jesus. Side note, I pictured her getting the shit beating out of her, just being like, Jesus! Jesus! But not like actually calling for him, like using it as an expletive. Okay, I'm going to get back into her quote, though. She says, when Christine heard me calling on the name of Jesus, she started saying it too, and I believe firmly that it was only by calling on his, capital H, his name, that I was not killed, end quote. And again, my image becomes like Christine grabbing onto Mike, trying to hold him back and being like, Jesus! You know, it's like, I don't think anyone in this situation was actually calling for Jesus to help. I think they were just like blown away at what was happening, because after that, they restrained Michael. They got him out of the room, and he was still having all sorts of issues. He was having erratic behavior at home, outbursts of profanity and just viciousness. He was given absolution with the congregation for what he had done to Marie.
What does that mean?
It's to say that the preacher basically came to him and said, like, we all forgive you for beating the shit out of her.
Oh, God, okay.
Like, they're absolving him for what he did. It's like, oh, no, it's okay. It's like everyone agreed, like, yeah, she had that one coming.
Oh,
it's
my
like,
gosh.
You figured it'd be from Christine, though, right? It's just really weird. And he was still really messed up. And they all noticed. His wife, his family, the congregation were like, something is wrong with Michael. And they all became convinced he was possessed. Whatever him and Marie had been doing had caused him to become possessed. And the group arranged an exorcism for Michael and requested Christine to convince Michael to come. And they did. And the exorcism of Michael Taylor began at midnight on October 5th, 1974. So this would technically be 11:59 October 5 or 0000 October 6th, 1974. Zero dark.
Oh, okay.
So they start the exorcism at midnight. Now, I don't claim to be an expert in these things, but to me, a couple of things need to be pointed out. One thing is that this was not a Catholic institution because there was no official exorcism requested here. Like, after looking into it, because it really hit me right now, like, whoa, they just decided, like, a group of them decided, like, we should just do an exorcism on Mike. I was like, they're not Catholics, because Catholics are usually the one that carry out exorcisms, and they have a very specific process where sometimes they do it unofficially, but you have to, like, request it, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I wonder what it is, and I looked into it, and they were Methodists. And Vicar Reverend Peter Vincent and Minister Reverend Smith were in attendance for this, along with many others. And the second thing that really bothered me about this exorcism is why on earth would you start at midnight? Nearly every possession case I have ever researched or studied has activities getting worse at night, as night approaches especially, and peaking during the evening. And 3 a.m. is the witching hour because it's supposed to be the time where like evil forces are at their most potent, because it's the inverse of 3 p.m., which is like the holy hour, because that's supposedly when Christ died on the cross. So 3 a.m., like, why would you try and battle a demon, or demons in this case, when they're at their strongest? It just seems pretty dumb.
All right.
So Michael was restrained and endured this exorcism for 8 hours, starting at midnight. During that time, the exorcism was actually really intense, and there's details on this in some of the events that are about to unfold, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the claims of the acts during the exorcism in the book talk about making him to confess to sins he actually never committed.
That's weird.
Which seems really, really weird. They also at one point jammed a crucifix into his mouth and then sprinkled holy water all over his body. The holy water part didn't bother me as much as shoving a crucifix into his mouth.
This seems to me like it's just a bunch of crazy people torturing this one dude.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like right now.
Who was also kind of crazy. Like, let's be real. At one point, they took a wooden crucifix that he was wearing, and they set it on fire.
What?
At 7 a.m., after 7 straight hours, they decided
that sounds blasphemous, just saying.
Yeah, it totally fucking does. At 7 a.m., they decided that although they had expelled 40 demons already from his body, giving them all names of like different things like sloth, envy, gluttony, stuff like that, that there were still demons left in his body, and the 3 of them that were left were violence, anger, and murder, still within Michael. Margaret Smith, who was Reverend Smith's wife, stated that she was told by God during this that the spirit of murder was going to break out. And she even mentioned, while she was bringing this up to the rest of the folks doing this exorcism, the name of Christine Taylor. Like, she was the one that was specifically in danger if murder broke out. And at 8 a.m., an hour later, everyone decided that they were tired, and that even though those 3 demons were still in there, they were going to call it quits for the time being. And Christine and Michael were sent home. Because what could go wrong, right?
Yeah.
So that's 8 a.m. They say, all right, everyone, good work. We're all going to go home now. And we'll get back together. And I'm not sure if they had a time to get back together. What I will say is that they never got back together. Because at 10 a.m., 2 hours later, actually it was 9:45 a.m. to be exact, Michael Taylor was stopped by the police because he was wandering through the streets naked and covered in blood.
Yeah, he was just like, we are never, ever, ever getting back together.
You are awful. So they were able to stop him from wandering around and speak to him, and when they asked him whose blood he had on him, he told them, quote, "It is the blood of Satan."
Was it? Okay, I'm gonna let you finish, because I'm just like, did he just...
let me finish?
I'm gonna let you finish.
Okay.
Which also involves Taylor Swift. So, no, it's just like, I just am wondering if he murdered everyone.
So here's what happened. The police then went to check on Michael Taylor's family, and they entered his home and discovered the body of Christine Taylor, his wife.
That's fucked.
So, here's a trigger warning for you folks. If you don't like gruesome details, skip ahead a few minutes, and there are 2 pieces of pretty fucked up shit here. And the first is related to Christine, and the second is related to animal cruelty.
Oh, no.
So...
No. The poodle! Yeah. Oh, no.
That's why I was like, I really don't want to write any of this right now. So Michael had attacked Christine with his bare hands. The official way to put it is to say he, quote, inflicted massive facial injuries on her with his hands and nails. The direct way to say it is that he clawed out her eyes, ripped out her tongue, and scratched off what remained of her face with his bare hands.
Jesus Christ.
She died of inhalation of blood. She
drowned in her own blood. Oh my fucking God.
So we got through that part about Christine. The next part is regarding their poodle. The quick way is to say that he killed their dog. So skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want to hear the rest. The official cause of death for their poodle was strangulation, and multiple websites and even a book that I found claimed that he ripped off this poor dog's legs out of their sockets with his bare hands while it was still alive before he strangled it to death.
How are you so... Okay, how is someone so strong that they could do that?
I don't know, and I don't even want to think about it.
Oh my god.
It's horrific in every sense of what that word truly means. A side note, I regret wanting to do true crime as soon as I found this detail. Like, I was so disappointed that of all the details I could get, I had the one with, like, severe animal cruelty in addition to just this vicious thing. But I'm like, I'm covering a possession, and sometimes this is the shit you get. So let's keep moving forward, all right? So between them leaving at 8 a.m. and the police finding him at 9:45 a.m., that's what happened. And religious people got very riled up about this because this was a very high-profile case. It got a lot of attention. Other religious officials heard about what happened, and they stated that had the exorcism not been done improperly, this never would have happened. They had agitated the demons and then turned him loose with them active in his body. The trial for Michael Taylor happens in 1975 after all of this came to light and everyone found out about what happened and everyone had an opinion on it. Michael Taylor pleads not guilty, stating he was possessed by demons and was therefore temporarily insane.
This is bullshit.
So if you're looking at this from a criminal perspective, this guy murdered someone, and because there's this idea in the public that he was possessed, because people really like to latch on to these ideas of possession, because we're all obsessed with the paranormal and stuff, especially that's very, like, terrifying like this, he used it. He decided that that's exactly what he was going to do, is he was going to use what was already in the public's mind. And all this shit comes out during the trial. People don't know what to make of it. His lawyer's strategy was to discredit the group he had joined and the reverends who had led the exorcism in a court of law. He straight up blamed them for the whole murder. He was quoted as saying, quote, "Let those who are truly responsible for this killing stand up. We submit that Taylor is a mere cipher. The real guilt lies elsewhere. Religion is the key." End quote. He's literally blaming religion for this murder having took place.
It's bullshit.
And it worked. Michael Taylor...
Are you fucking kidding me?
...was found not guilty by reason of insanity.
What state is this in?
This is over
in England. That's
England,
right.
Yep.
Oh my... No.
He was transferred to Broadmoor Hospital, which is a high-security psychiatric hospital, for 2 years. He was then transferred to another psychiatric hospital for an additional 2 years before being released. He spent 4 years in 2 separate mental institutions.
For murdering
his wife and dog. And from what I can tell with all the research I've done, which is a lot, he is alive to this day. He is 76 years old. In the time since he was released from the hospital...
Did he get remarried?
He has attempted suicide on 4 separate
Lanta.
occasions. He was sent to prison in 2005 for indecently touching a teenage girl. While he was in prison...
This guy's got a lot of fucking demons.
Well, it's weird, too, because, like, that was 30 years later, you know? He kept his nose clean for 30 years, and then when he was, like, 50, 55, 60, somewhere around there, he does this, or maybe he just gets caught. While in prison, he started to exhibit the, quote, sort of strange behavior, end quote, from just prior to his wife's murder. So he's starting to act like he's possessed again, or he's possessed again, who the hell knows. And this caused him to go back to court, where he was determined to be in need of psychiatric treatment yet again. And I think he winds up back in a mental institution for the remainder of his sentence before being released again. So this one is haunting and terrifying. But hey, the patrons said they wanted true crime and possession.
Oh my god.
And that's what they wound up getting with this topic, is a little bit of both or way too much of each. And personally, I don't know what to make of this one. I think that a horrible, vicious murder took place, and someone only spent 4 years in a mental institution as recompense. And that just feels, to put it simply, unjust. And I do think that this guy is racked by guilt every day of his life, as evidenced by the 4 suicide attempts. So at least there's that, I guess. It's entirely possible that he just snapped and decided to use that possession thing as his defense, since everyone already seemed to have made up their mind about it.
Okay, so the thing is, he said he was possessed, right? Because he had these demons in him still. He didn't get an exorcism after it happened. He still has those demons. So while he's in there, or when he gets out, it's like, I still got these demons in me. I need to fucking kill myself. He's trying to kill himself because he still has that dark stuff in him. And then maybe 30 years later, he's like, I can't handle it anymore. I need to do naughty things. And he does this, goes back in, because he's still fucked up.
Right.
I mean...
It is definitely not a happily ever after or good guys win in the end type of story. Who the hell knows, man? Maybe he was actually possessed, and it's like Robin says, that he struggled with it. And even if he wasn't possessed, he's clearly struggling with the guilt of the fact of what had happened. And he's attempted to take his own life 4 separate times. And that also makes me wonder, though, like, maybe he's, like, quote-unquote attempting to take his own life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, trying to get attention for himself or trying to get some sort of care for himself by acting out in a way that appears to be him trying to take his own life, because I couldn't find details on it, and I'm not even sure that I want to. But it is a really, really dark topic, and who the hell knows what actually happened. All that we really know is the true crime aspect of it, which is his wife was brutally, brutally murdered. So that, my friends, is the possession of Michael Taylor.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And sorry, that one's super, super fucking dark.
Mine is not a happy ending either, so...
Strap in, folks.
Yep, that'll be... This is what you wanted.
So before we get to that, though, we are going to take a quick commercial break.
And we're back.
Well done.
Was that too long?
Super intense.
All right. So thank you again to all the patrons on Patreon. If you guys want to help us vote for some topics sometimes, patreon.com/Scaryish podcast. Lots of tears. Check it out. And thank you guys for helping us choose topics. Will help us narrow down our topics, because every week we're like, what am I doing? So that's super great. Thank you so much. I'm covering our true crime topic, even though Adam did cover a somewhat true crime topic. That was super depressing as well. I'm diving into the disappearance of Lauren Spierer, a somewhat more recent disappearance than those that I've done in the past, as this one dates back to 2011. So it's pretty darn recent. It's a 21st century mystery.
This is the year I graduated from Purdue.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
2011.
Cool.
I'm just saying that because I am familiar with this one. It's one of the first ones that I am familiar with because it happened around that exact time. And my brother was an IU alumni. So he was down there until, I think, like 2008.
Well, nobody knows down where. I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
You're too excited, okay?
I'm not excited. I'm actually really sad, but it's just creepy because there's a lot of overlap in my personal life. So go ahead.
All right. So Lauren Spierer is an American-born, woman, born January 17th, 1991, to Charlene and Robert Spierer, and she was born into a typical American family. She grew up in Scarsdale, New York. Her father was an accountant. She just had a normal life growing up, And in 2009, she enrolled at Indiana University, where she was studying textiles merchandising. And to be honest, I had no idea that was an actual major that you could have.
IU has so many majors, dude.
It's just so crazy.
For those of you who don't know anything about Indiana University Bloomington, it is an amazing school with a ton of majors in some of the top-notch departments like in the country. And I know that because it was my brother's school, and he used to talk all the shit possible to me about how IU is better than Purdue because it's a huge rivalry. So,
oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Interesting. She was active in the Jewish community on campus and even spent the spring of 2008 in Israel planting trees on behalf of the Jewish National Fund. So she did a lot of stuff, She did have a boyfriend, Jesse Wolf, that she had met years earlier at a summer camp called Camp Tawanda in Honesdale, Pennsylvania, I think. And at this camp, she also met a number of future IU classmates that became her circle of friends at the university. When she disappeared on June 3rd, 2011, she was only 20 years old. She was a baby. She was so young,
right.
She was out drinking with friends at 20 years old. I don't know why they would serve someone over or
Fake
under
IDs,
21.
dude.
It's just like, okay, so I am a goody two-shoes when it comes to that, because I didn't even have my first drink till I was 20, and it's because my boyfriend at the time didn't even know I was 20.
He just took you to a bar, right? And he
he just took me to the bar because he assumed I was over 21, and I was like, dude, I can't drink. I'm like 20 years old. But okay, whatever. Okay, college town. I just assume they're 20, they're going to college, they're like, yeah, they're going to get served drinks, whatever.
Most bars are pretty diligent, and even bars that I still like, I have friends that work at those bars still, like not specific IU ones, but I have friends that used to work at IU bars that are still bouncers, and if they find a fake ID, what they used to do for years is take pictures of it and post it on Facebook. So all the bouncers that were working that night could see the people who were trying to enter the bar with a fake ID, so they would know if they showed up. One, immediately they can just say, like, oh, this is fake, you know? Mm-hmm. They wouldn't even have to check it. No matter how good the fake was, if one of them caught it, the rest of them could catch it. And then those same kids would find them on Facebook and report it because they were, like, posting their personal information. And it's like, it's fake, you fucking liar. But they wind up having to get it taken down, and they were contacted by Facebook, like, if you keep posting pictures of people's IDs, like, we're going to ban your accounts.
Wow.
So they can't do it anymore, and that was definitely something that was a deterrent from people getting into bars.
Okay. Her boyfriend, Wolf, did not go out with them that night, but he did text back and forth with Spierer before he went to bed. According to witnesses, she was absolutely wasted. Police were able to put together a timeline of where she was before she disappeared, though, based on video surveillance footage and, like, eyewitness testimony that they were able to kind of put together. So, that Friday night, June 3rd, 2011, Spierer met up with a group of friends around 12:30. Okay, so, for me...
Meeting at 12:30 is insane.
I'm like, why are you meeting at 12:30, dude? Like, that's bedtime. You should be done drinking and walking home at 12:30.
Honestly, I remember those days, too. Like, I specifically remember being like, dude, like, the party's not going to start until like 10 or 11. Like, why are you here so early? To people that would show up before then, because it was just like mind-boggling that people would start partying before like the late hours.
So you have to think, like, these people are 10 years younger than I am, and it's just, to me, I'm like, yo, no.
It's entirely possible. One, like, the reason this happens in college, for those of you who are unaware, is because you wind up with a schedule eventually where you're not getting up at 8 a.m. You know what I mean? You don't have a class at 8. You don't have a class at 8:30, 9. Some people, like, I had semesters where I didn't have a class until 2:30, you know?
Yeah.
And then I usually, because I had at least 4 classes, wouldn't get done until 9:30. So, like, if I was going to catch up with people and party, like, and that's how most of my friends were at the time, too. Like, the party wasn't going to start until we got out of class, which is, at the earliest, 10 to 11. So,
it's just mind-boggling to me because I'm tired. At 12:30, I'm tired.
Well, we're old people now. I daydream about going to sleep at 8 o'clock sometimes. I'm like, am I going to be this fucking lame? And at one point, I'll finally say, yes, I am. And then I'll never look back. And I'll be that person that goes to bed at 8 p.m.
Okay, so she meets up with her friends at 12:30. Then video has them entering Kilroy's bar, the sports bar, at 1:46 a.m.
I've been there, and it is really... really creepy that this took place at Kilroy's.
Really?
Yeah, because there was a Kilroy's in the town I grew up in for a long time, and it closed down. And when I went down to see my brother, I had mentioned to him that Kilroy's closed. And he was like, oh, we have a Kilroy's here. And so
Is it like a nice place, or?
It's like, you know, your average bar that serve food, and like they have TVs everywhere. It's every bar you've ever been to that's not like nice or a shithole. Okay. It's like right in the middle.
All right, so they get there at 1:46 a.m. This is like almost 2 in the morning. I just don't understand.
What I will say, though, is not like Vegas. Vegas does not have last call. For anyone who's ever not been to Vegas, when I first moved here, I asked a bartender at like 3 a.m. when I was out drinking, like, yo, when's last call?
Why were you out at 3 a.m.?
Because I just moved to Vegas, and it was literally 2011, too, so I was just coming off of my college years.
When I just moved to Vegas, I was like, gonna play my video games. I got my TV set up in my room.
Those are the other nights, but no, like, Vegas doesn't have last call, and that was mind-blowing because, like, 3 a.m., between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. back home is last call. So, like, she's burning the midnight oil, don't get me wrong, but she's like at the end of the night. They're about to call last call.
Yeah, so they get to the bar at 1:46 a.m. They leave at 2:27 a.m. And like many an inebriated, drunk college student before her, she left her cell phone and her shoes at the bar.
That sucks.
Apparently it's because she took off her shoes to walk on the beach or something. Is there like sand or something? I don't remember.
I don't know about that nearby. I mean, lots of chicks take off their shoes because their feet fucking hurt by 2 a.m.
I don't know. But her friend, Corey Rossman, walked with her back to her apartment complex. She was seen at Smallwood Plaza apartment complex at 2:30 a.m., which is where her apartment was. A passerby named Zach Oakes asked if she was okay. Apparently, Rossman, the guy that she was with, gets into a fight somewhere along the way where he gets punched. And he claims that this punch knocked out the memory of the night.
That's horseshit.
Right?
That is such horseshit.
It's such bullshit. So, okay. So, 2:48 a.m., she's seen leaving that apartment complex for some reason. Like, why wouldn't you just be like, all right, I'm going to my apartment. I'll see you later. Fuck it. I bet she's like, I just want to keep on partying.
That's exactly what it is. I have been last called out of a bar, gone home, grabbed something, and went to a house party until the sun came up.
So her apartment's there, but I guess she goes to walk back to Rossman's apartment. She walks into an alleyway that runs between College Avenue and Morton Street, where
oh my God, dude.
She's then seen exiting the alley at 2:51. So they walk through the alley, takes them 3 minutes, not that long, right? Then they walk towards this empty lot. Her purse and keys are found along the way in the alley later on. The two of them arrive at Rossman's apartment shortly afterward.
Okay, so who's she walking with at this point?
Rossman. So Cody Rossman. That's who she's
so
walking
he's still with her.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to his apartment. Okay. So Michael Beth, Rossman's roommate, was home and stated that the both of them were totally fucked up and stumbling, and they're just drunk off their ass. Rossman even vomited all over the carpet on the way upstairs.
That's why he can't remember the night, is because he's fucking hammered.
And I bet getting punched and stuff like that doesn't fucking help.
That's just probably the last thing he remembers, because getting punched is very, very memorable. You know, even if you like say you black out at midnight and you get punched in the face at 2, you might remember getting punched, even if you don't remember 12 to 2.
Yeah, so he vomits all over the carpet. Michael Beth helps him walk up to his bedroom. He tries to get Spierer to stay over, but according to Michael Beth, Spierer insisted that she just wanted to go back to her own apartment. Why she would walk someone back to their apartment and then have to backtrack to hers is beyond me.
It's drunk logic, dude. Like, I want to make sure you get home okay. Then all of a sudden it's like, I want to sleep in my own bed.
So see, for that one guy, I would be like, no, dude, you're fucked up. You're going to sleep on our couch and you're not going anywhere.
It's really hard from that perspective, too, to tell a girl that is inebriated, especially at that point. Like,
then don't you call a friend, say like,
that's what
hey,
you have to do.
Can you pick her up?
But it's like, it's 3 a.m. at this point, probably. And it's like, one, you can't just tell someone like, hey, especially you cannot tell a girl, hey, you're not allowed to leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's fucked up. And the worst part is, even if you're trying to do the right thing, you still can't do that. And you're not going to call the cops on her.
And that's probably why he didn't stop her.
The best thing he could have done is to have called a cab and gotten her a ride to her place and like made sure she got there.
So what happened was at 3:30 a.m., Michael Beth calls his neighbor, Jay Rosenbaum, asking him to take care of Spierer. And according to Beth, Spierer wanted to continue drinking. And eventually she did get to Rosenbaum's apartment, and he noticed that she had a bruise under her eye that he assumed she had gotten from a fall earlier that night. Spierer told him that she had no idea where that bruise came from, because she's blitzed out of her mind. She's like, I don't even know what is going on right now.
As a sober 34-year-old man, I get scratches and bruises all the time, but I have no idea where they came from. So
demons.
It's like, you're going to claim demons. We call it Scratch Bandit in our house. You just wake up and you have a scratch out of nowhere. You're like, where the hell did that come
from your raptor toes?
I don't have raptor toes right now. So that's what we call it when you have long toenails. But no, it's like, it's scary because it's something that I think a lot of people can relate to. You get too drunk, something stupid happens, you're trying to manage the stupidity of the night and hope that nothing goes terribly wrong.
I'm a little bit annoyed that she has no girlfriends with her.
Yeah, that is annoying.
Yeah. So there were 2 calls that came from Rosenbaum's phone during the time that she was with him, and according to him, they were both placed by Spierer. Both were 2 friends of hers, neither of which answered, and she left no voicemails for them. So at 4:30 a.m., Rosenbaum reports that Spierer had left the apartment, and this is the last time that anyone ever saw her.
So he's the one that was supposed to be in charge of making sure she was okay.
Right. And at the intersection, so that's the last time anyone ever sees her. He reports that he saw her at the intersection of 11th Street and College Avenue, heading south. She was barefoot in black leggings and a white shirt. You let this girl walk barefoot at 4 a.m. What? Just call the cops. Call someone to be like, dude, I'm not letting this chick leave. You know? How it's just so irresponsible. And I get it. He's not her boyfriend. He's not anybody that's like responsible for this person. But at the same time, isn't there some sort of desire to protect this person from the dangers of the outside world?
Yeah, there has to be. Like, there has to be a point where you decide, like, okay, we're gonna get in trouble, but you're not gonna be in danger, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I have had a friend completely blitzed out of his mind try and get behind the wheel of a car to the point where he almost ran me and a few of my other friends over because we blocked him from driving out. We're like, you're not fucking driving. And he was being a dickhead, and we're like, you're not going to drive. You're fucking hammered. Like, you're not going to drive. And he was like, it's my car. I'll do whatever the fuck I want with it. Because when people are drunk, they act differently, you know? And usually it's like 9 out of 10 times you have a fun, happy time, and then that 10th time you don't know if you're going to cry or try and fight someone. And
I always cry.
Honestly, like, what wound up happening is we all just decided, like, okay, just let the air out of his tires. Like, we'll come by and we'll fill it up with a what do you call it? Like one of those portable things you can plug into your cigarette lighter. That's an air compressor that we had. And we're like, we'll just come and fill it up in the morning, but he won't be able to drive. No big deal. And that, like, caused him to get out of the car and wanted to fight us, but we were able to get him back to an apartment. And it's like, people act like assholes sometimes, but it's like, you have to stop them from doing something that's definitely going to be dangerous.
Right. Well, her boyfriend sends her a text the next day only to get a response from the bar employee because she left her phone there. And he reports her missing after that. And what I don't get is how could one response from a bar employee equal, oh man, my girlfriend's missing?
Did he reach out to anyone else before he reported her missing?
From everything I read, it doesn't seem like. It's just like he got this text and then he immediately reports her missing.
If that's the case, if that's exactly what happened, that's super sketchy.
That's kind of like that chick from Tiger King who's like changed the will to say if he goes missing, like,
yeah, the first clause in it's like
fucking,
in the event of my disappearance instead of death. Yeah, that's super sketch.
So he must have known something else, you know. When you don't answer your phone, I don't report you missing, right? I just keep texting you till I annoy the crap out of you.
You always say within an hour, like, I'm starting to get worried.
Yeah, but I don't immediately say, holy shit, he's missing. Authorities searched for 9 days in the Sycamore Ridge landfill in Pimento, Indiana, trying to find any clues that might help with finding her. The Bloomington police, the Indiana University police, and even the FBI took part in the search. They even got DNA samples from possible people involved. As of May 24th, 2013, there have been over 3,000 tips received on her disappearance, 100 of which are from the first half of 2013. So that's a lot of tips that don't help, and it's so annoying that there's nothing they can do with all this information, you know? Her parents believe that she's no longer alive because of how absolutely out of her gourd that she was. They believe that she must have been drugged at the bar. As with, I'm sure any parent would be, they were suspicious of all the men that she was with that night, as well as her boyfriend, Wolf. And Wolf refused to take any polygraph tests and got lawyers as soon as it was reported that she was missing.
Right.
The men that night state that they have taken polygraphs, even ones from the FBI, and they too have lawyers, though. So it's just, that's self-preservation, though. Maybe they have nothing to do with it, but they're going to sue us or some shit.
It's an expensive school, man. Unless you get a scholarship, that's a very expensive school, and a lot of those people that are down there have parents who are going to tell them immediately if there is any sort of involvement. Yeah. Don't say a fucking word until you get a lawyer, and that's just that culture that exists with kids that have means. Like, they have money. Their parents don't want them to be blamed for something that's not their fault, and they want to make sure that if there is something that their kid has done wrong, that they're represented so they don't wind up becoming a scapegoat. But, like, in the meantime, this girl is missing, and no one knows what happened to her.
Yep. So the parents filed a lawsuit against Rossman, Rosenbaum, and Beth, accusing them of negligence. And they didn't make sure... It's because they didn't make sure that she was safely back in her apartment and that they allowed her to keep drinking.
It's really, really hard to stop someone who wants to keep drinking from drinking more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know enough about drugs that are used on people, especially women in bars, but I'm fairly certain that they pass out, you know? It's like they're not...
But maybe she passed out in the middle of nowhere.
That's true, but she kept going for hours.
Yeah.
Like, she left at 1:46 and she was still walking around as late as 4:30 a.m. That's 3 hours later. So it's like, you imagine whatever it was, if there was something in her system, like, should have, like, put her down for the count, which is terrifying to think of, but I don't know. This one is just so sad and bizarre. The other thing, too, is, like, when you think of, like, well, why was she with all these guys? Like,
I just think it's weird she didn't have any girlfriends.
I have a lot of female friends who just get along better with guys and not girls.
I'm like that too. Like, I have way more guy friends than I have girlfriends, but it's just, I think it's weird that she's 20. She's young. She just got to this new college. You know, she does have a bunch of friends that she's made at camp. Why did she not have any other girlfriends with her?
Well, I mean, she's probably calling people because she wants the night to keep going, you know, like keep the party going. And they're like not answering because they're either asleep or they're just not going to answer a phone call at 4 a.m. You know, from someone that you know is probably blitzed out of their mind and wants, like, I've gotten drunk phone calls from friends at 4 a.m. And it's like they want one of three things: me to drink with them, me to take them somewhere, or me to bail them out. And sometimes you get that call, and I honestly, every time I've ever gotten that call, I'm like, well, let's see which one it is. You know what I mean? But yeah. I've definitely called people before to be like, can you pick me up? And they have just sent me to voicemail or just ignored me and told me later on, like, yeah, I just didn't answer. And it's an example of, like, the partying lifestyle and some of the things that wind up happening that is, you know, if not negligent, definitely dangerous for folks that might need help.
Yeah. So in 2013... Federal Judge Tanya Walton Pratt dismissed the suit against Beth, and then the other two were dismissed in 2014. And they were all ruled to have no duty to care for Spierer because they had no responsibility. They don't have any responsibility to her. Why do they have to do? You know what I mean?
That's why they got lawyers.
So Wolf and her friends told police that she used drugs on top of her alcohol intake that night. Wolf's mother reported that Spierer was asked to leave that summer camp where she met Wolf because of her drug use. And I think that's just hella shade to throw at someone who's missing.
It's one thing if you're trying to set an example of specific behavior because you think it'll lead to them being found.
I think she's just being like, it's not my son's fault that your daughter's a drug addict. That's exactly
what it is. It's like, it's not helping trying to find her. It's trying to state that it's like, it's no one's fault but your daughter's fault.
Yeah. That
she went missing, and that is fucked up.
It's so fucked up. It's just like, ugh, people are hella rude. I just can't even. So Rosenbaum reported that Spierer's use of cocaine, alcohol, and Klonopin tablets that night. And Klonopin apparently is like clonazepam, which is used to prevent seizures and panic disorders. And it's pretty much like a tranquilizer. Which, if that were the case, would explain how messed up she was that night, you know? And she did have a rare heart condition called long QT syndrome, which means she had an increased risk of irregular heartbeat that may result in fainting. You can drown, or you can even just sudden death, just die. And that's absolutely terrifying. Episodes can be triggered by exercise or stress, so if she was on anything that raised her heart rate, it's just like, hashtag triggered. It's gonna happen, you know?
It just really, I don't know, it's because we've been watching all these stupid horror movies lately.
Oh, God.
But it's like, if something were to happen to her, when she was around someone else, even if it's someone she knew and someone she trusted, people can be idiots and people can panic, you know? Mm-hmm. And clearly, everyone in this case that's involved had this mindset of, I don't want to be blamed for this, you know?
Yeah.
And when people have that mindset and something happens where they immediately think, like, I might be blamed for this, there's no telling what they might do to make sure they aren't blamed.
So we'll get there. One sec. So police did not rule out the possibility of abduction by a stranger. The parents believe otherwise. They don't think that this whole incident could possibly have been random. The thing is, though, 9 months before her disappearance, Spierer had been arrested on charges of public intoxication and illegal consumption. And police also found a small amount of cocaine in her room. So,
okay, just really quick. Getting a PI for being 20 years old at IU or any other college campus is probably the most common charge you're gonna get.
Are you serious?
Fuck yeah, dude. Like, you're 20 years old. I don't know what she looks like. I'm sure she's a very pretty girl. She's gonna get into bars. She's gonna get beer. She's going to, if she has any alcohol in her system at all, it's illegal consumption immediately. Like, period. And if you're walking around going from place to place, which is like the only way to go from place to place in IU. I have walked so many fucking miles in IU Bloomington, it's nuts. I've gotten lost. I've spent a night under a tree hiding from people in a White Castle parking lot one time No fucking joke. I have had some horrible things that are my fault because of drinking at IU because I got lost because that campus is fucking enormous.
I don't even know what to think of you right now.
So all I'm saying is, like, when people say stuff like this, when we're giving you guys details of, like, what happened, like, I don't know how many people would not have gotten into this exact same situation and not gotten a PI, you know, and not been 20 years old and wound up getting an illegal consumption. The cocaine thing is definitely something where it's like, yeah, like, that's a lot different. But it's not, as a 34-year-old adult man, all I can tell you is I am shocked how much cocaine is done. And it's just fucking mind-blowing how it's everywhere. So when people act like, oh, not my daughter, like, oh my God, in a college campus? IU has like 80,000 people. Like, Bloomington has 80,000. And you're going to tell me, like, people are shocked that, like, a 20-year-old pretty girl was doing blow? Like, yeah, that's fucked up, but that's not uncommon. I hate that people try and pretend like they're holier than thou when a detail comes out
Jesus
that's like,
Christ.
oh yeah, no shit, she was doing everything that every other college kid was doing down on that campus. Like, it just distracts from the details of, like, where is she? What happened to her?
I am a goody two-shoes, so I'm just like, so she obviously wasn't an innocent little daisy, but it doesn't mean that her disappearance was inherently her fault. It's obviously a tragedy regardless, and all these people that are throwing all these things out there are like, it's not my fault, you know? And it's just really fucked up. That's what people throw out there to make it seem like, well, it's not my fault she got fucked up because she's already on drugs and doing all this stuff and whatever. And it's just dumb. Anyway, so none of the men that night were named as official suspects in her disappearance.
How the fuck is that possible?
I don't know, okay? So in 2015, the Bloomington police announced that they were investigating a possible link between Lauren Spierer's disappearance and the murder of a Hannah Wilson, who was another student at Indiana University. And Wilson had gone missing on April 24th, 2015, after visiting Kilroy's, the same bar as Spierer the night that she disappeared. And there were a number of similarities between the two cases. So Wilson's friends told investigators that she had been partying before heading to Kilroy's and that she was already drunk when she got there. When she left, she entered the taxi on the curb alone, paid for the fare at the curb, and then gave the driver her address. That was the last that anyone ever saw her alive. Her body was found in a vacant lot the next day, 10 miles from campus. She'd been struck 3 or 4 times in the back of the head and died of blunt force trauma. Daniel Messel was arrested for the murder after his cell phone was found near the body. I mean, he also had 8 prior convictions for violent behavior, so there's that. Is that just an easy target to arrest someone for? I mean, he was sentenced to 60 years in prison for her murder, and then 20 years for being a repeat criminal offender, and then another 15 years was added in 2018 because another girl came forward and said that he assaulted her. So this guy is in jail.
So this guy is definitely bad news.
He's bad, but unfortunately, in July of 2015, it was concluded that the two cases were totally unrelated and just simply coincidental. January 28th, 2016, the FBI raided a home in Martinsville that was connected to a man they suspected had been exposing himself to a bunch of women. And they looked through the dirt in the area and even brought in cadaver dogs. They towed away a white truck belonging to a 35-year-old Justin Wagers who lived with his mother and stepfather until his arrest. Anthropologists even dug the area but didn't find anything of value to the investigation. So they weren't able to find any possible clues or anything that might help. Supposedly, some guy named Corey Hammersley in 2013 was arrested for going on a shooting rampage in Indiana with a pistol and was sentenced to 24 years. While in jail, he was interviewed, and while doing the interview, an image of Lauren showed up on the TV in front of him. And he looks up and goes, quote, "Man, I knew the guys that did that," end quote.
The guys?
Yeah. He went on to say, quote, "They were drinking and doing ecstasy. She OD'd. It scared them. They didn't know what to do with her, and they took her down to the Ohio River and got rid of her and disposed of her body," end quote.
Wow.
It's a convincing idea because of her heart condition. If she was doing ecstasy, I mean, it could have just fucked her up, you know what I mean? But who knows for sure? This avenue wasn't really looked into. They didn't
fucking look into that? This guy says, I know who got rid of that girl's body, and no one looks into that?
From everything I've read, no one really looked into it. So I just hope that if there is anyone out there that knows anything, please say something. Her parents just posted this thing like 3 months ago on their Facebook, like, you might have moved on after doing this or whatever, but we haven't moved on.
It's been their world for 9 years, dude. Like, so, you can forget a lot in 9 years. These people have lived it every single waking moment of their lives for 9 years.
Yeah. So if you want to send any tips, or if you can send any tips, you can send it to helpfindlauren@gmail.com.
That shit's crazy, dude.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane.
I've heard of it before. I remember when it happened, and I didn't, I moved away August of 2011. I started traveling in like July. So I never really knew what happened with it. And the fact that it's still unsolved to this day.
Yep.
That none of the guys she was with that night were ruled as suspects in any way, shape, or form. Which means that I can't even imagine who was suspects except for people who were suspects in anything else that seemed similar. Which means it wasn't even connected at all to any of the evidence to her case.
It's really sad that there's no evidence that is leading anywhere. It's just like unsolved mystery, really.
Right.
So.
Well, that's really sad.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you did it, though, because it's 9 years later and people should remember it. And it's helpfindlauren@gmail.com.
Yep.
I have a lot of friends and family that still live in Indiana, in various places in Indiana. And it's like, if this were to happen to a friend of mine, and I can only imagine how, like, they say 6 degrees of separation. Mm-hmm. Like, you're 6 degrees of separation from every person on the planet. No matter who you pick on this world, the furthest apart you can get from them is 6 people. There are 6 people between you and that person. And I don't know how many people I'm apart from her, but I can't imagine it's a lot. What I can tell you is if this happened to one of my friends, you know what I mean? Someone that was, like, hitting really close to home, I would be adamant that someone knows something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've gone to a funeral before for, like, really sketchy circumstances.
Really?
Yeah. And looked around the room and talked to someone and been like, someone in this fucking room knows what happened. And it's a really awful feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I hope that 9 years of time has been enough to let that fester for anyone who actually does know what happened, and that they actually say something, because this family deserves to have some form of closure on what happened to their daughter. That's what it really comes down to, and it's super, super sad. And I sincerely wish that someone with a goddamn conscience would grow some fucking balls and say something about what happened to this girl. Because I can't imagine living with that. Like, I don't want to imagine living with that, but you have to put yourself in that position if you want to affect some form of change for someone who's been missing for 9 years.
Yeah.
So it's like, this one's really weird. We've never covered disappearances before.
Yeah, we have.
Have we?
Mm-hmm.
One time before, though, right?
I've
and
done,
it was from, like, the 40s?
Well, I've done, like, an actress. I've done the D.B. Cooper one. I've done...
D.B. Cooper, yeah. That guy wasn't, like,
we've
disappeared.
We've done that baby, right?
He disappeared himself. We did the Lindbergh baby, but that one was, like, sort of solved. But these are all, like, old things, you know?
Yeah.
This isn't something from 2011, and it's so close to where I grew up. You know, it's just bizarre to think
around
about.
The time that you were there and everything.
Yeah, it's just a really weird one for me, so I just sincerely hope that any folks that are listening out there who might have any information, as much as it sucks to say, a lot of tips that get sent in are very unhelpful. You know, like you said, 3,000 tips, nothing led to any sort of evidence that helped, but someone knows something that could be helpful out there, and if you can give a tip that leads to that, then hey, that's a good thing you did. You know what I mean? It's so funny, too, because, like, I mean, it's not funny, it's just bizarre, because we just watched the documentary on Netflix, and the opening is a George Orwell quote from the book 1984, and I'm paraphrasing here, because I don't remember exactly, but it's like, in times of darkness, telling the truth is a rebellious act, or something along those lines. And I think people sometimes like, well, I can't tell the truth, that's wrong. No, it's not. Like, it's sincerely not. And if you think it's going to lead to consequences for someone, those are deserved. And it's going to lead to closure for someone else, and that is also deserved. So that's just, my little rant at the end of this to say, like, if someone knows something, please God say something. So But yeah, that's everything I have
Okay.
for that topic.
Thanks.
But sincerely, thank you for covering it.
Thank you.
So I think that is just about everything that we have for episode 121 of Scaryish. We've had a lot of episodes.
Dude, wait. I cannot wait till we get to 200. That would be insane.
It's 79 episodes away, so it's going to be about a year and a half before we get there, but we'll get there. For anyone who has a story they would like to share, hopefully something not as sad, but if it's paranormal, true crime, whatever it is, if you want to talk about it, we would like to hear it. Please email storytime@scaryish.com or go to any of our social medias and hit us up. We have Facebook, which is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Our Twitter handle is @scarishpod, and our Instagram is @scarishpodcast. And we also have a website, Scaryish.com. You can click on Contact Us and send us your story that way. Robin, for anyone who would like to donate to us monetarily, how can they do so?
If you want to support us financially in this crazy time, you can go to patreon.com/scaryish podcast. Those are monthly donations. There's a whole bunch of different tiers on there. We also have a coffee, ko-fi.com/scaryish podcast. And those are one-time donations. All your donations go to helping us upgrade our studio setup. Anything helps, really. If you want to check out our Etsy shop, we have heart and apple pins on there that are absolutely adorable, and I freaking love them. We have stickers, we have coasters, we have a whole bunch of stuff. If you guys want to check that out, you can go to our website. There's a link to our Etsy store on there. And yeah, just helps out. Thanks.
Indeed. So thank you, folks, for listening to episode 121 of Scaryish. We are going to be broadcasting the live recording of Storytime number 112 at youtube.com/Scaryish and twitch.tv/Scaryish podcast if you would like to join us for the live episode. It's 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday, the day this comes out, March 31st, the final day of March, which is, I think we can all agree at this point, it's a good thing March is about to come to an end because it has not been kind to most of us. But hey, maybe April will be better. So we hope to see you at 6:30 p.m. over there at youtube.com/Scaryish podcast or twitch.tv/Scaryish podcast.
I just said all that.
I know, but I said it again. So cool. That's about everything we got, Robin. So go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.